Good afternoon, and welcome to today's episode of Speaking the Truth About Money with Martin Coward and Joy the Wise Woman. I am both Martin Coward and Joy the Wise Woman. Joy the Wise Woman is my spiritual name. And as you get to know me and the things we talk about, she's the one doing everything. And Martin has learned to get out of the way and let her rule because she is the divine. And if I can close my mind enough to open my heart, she guides me into a beautiful and exciting world. And that's what I want for you. And that's what that's the world of the heart space. So that's what we're here about today. We're all about looking at what are those things that are getting in our way? What are those objects in our head that we need to clear out so that we can truly step into our genius, into our infinite power and superpower so we can make a difference in the world. And I'm so excited today because my guest is Khaïry Varre. She is my mindset coach. So I'm so excited when she agreed to come on my show and share what she teaches me and what I get to learn from her because she's one of the best I've ever met in the world of mindset space. And so what I want to start with Khaïry is that you weren't always in mindset space. I don't believe, like any of us.
No.
We had to have some kind of shift in our own mindset in order to get here. We had some kind of realization. And what I've understood is that when we realize the truth of who we are, we cannot unrealize it. And then we have to develop a mindset that goes along with that truth. So what I'd like to start out with, if you would today, is start out with a little bit, anything, I want to hear your story. But what I'd like to think about, who was Khaïry before she had this mindset shift, before she realized the truth that she was this brilliant co-creator of the universe.
Yeah.
And there was nothing that she could not do. And she tell us a little of that story, and then what was your life like before? What was the moment? What was the event? That kind of epiphany bridge, if you will, that sort of this is the truth, and this is who I am.
And it's so funny, as you're asking this, I'm feeling compelled to share something that I haven't told to a lot of people. But when I was a kid, when I was very young, probably 7, 8 years old, I started having a lot of these dreams where I would meet someone and they would always tell me, just ask, and it is always given. So from a very young age, I knew that there was a puzzle and I had to figure it out, but I had no idea what the end result was going to be. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So a lot of my life was a quest to figure out how to get everything. I was told many times by the same individual whose face I've never seen that whatever you ask, it is always given. Since I was a very young age, like too young to make this stuff up. And so I spent a lot of my young adult life trying to figure out, but how come then sometimes when I ask for something, I get it, and sometimes I don't? And I have a lot of very specific moments, even one day when I was opening the door, I think, to my room, and stuff was happening in my life. And I remember stopping there and just going through my mind, like, but how come it works and sometimes it doesn't? How come sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't? So this was like my 20s. This was my teenage years. This was my 20s, trying to figure out why does it work sometimes and why does it not? And I know for sure that it's supposed to. So there's something I haven't figured out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where the quest started. But really what defines for me who I am now, which is constantly evolving, constantly expanding, and I absolutely love it, versus me trying to figure stuff out and struggling, was actually getting extremely sick between 2014 and 2017. I got extremely sick and no one could figure out what it was. And it was very debilitating. It was an illness that prevented me a lot of days to get out of bed because I couldn't walk. And it's something that no matter where I went, I tried to find help here in North America, in Europe, in the Middle East, in Africa, and no one could figure out what it was. And one day, I remember I was in my grandmaster's, because I'm a Kung Fu practitioner. I've been practicing martial arts since I was a kid. And one day I was in my grandmaster's office, And for some reason, he asked me questions about my health, and I was like, "Oh, I'm okay. It's just, the physical, just like the past couple of years, it's difficult." And he said, I gave him a little bit of the symptoms, and he said, you're sick because you're angry. Like, that's the reason why you're sick. And I was like, what do you mean I am angry? I'm like the most joyous person on earth. I'm always smiling and having fun. It's like, what do you mean I'm angry? It's like, you're angry. So you have to figure that stuff out. And that was in 2016, I believe. And that started like a really intense quest of me turning back inward versus trying to find
Mm-hmm.
out on the outside, turning back inward to
Yeah.
figure out where I was angry. And I realized that I was actually very angry and very resentful of a whole lot of things that I didn't know. And so doing a lot of that inner world type of work, and I didn't have anyone to really teach me, but I was pulling from what I learned from my grandmaster, what I learned from the Sufi world, because my family is, that's where, in terms of religion or, philosophies, that's where it comes from. And pulling from those things, what could help me let go of the resentment. And of course, having a lot of conversations with myself, and I started to see my physical body getting better and better. I stopped all medication and completely healed. So that completely transformed everything.
Yeah,
Complete.
I love that. And I think we all have to go through some form of the dark night of the
Yeah.
soul. And thank God I had my spiritual teacher. It was me being here on the edge of bankruptcy, thinking that living with a fear-driven belief that I had to be rich and successful or I wasn't lovable. And when my business began to fall apart, I had so much fear that I wasn't a lovable person anymore. Because that's something I had been carrying all my life. So I needed this dark night like you needed that sickness to point you to the door of where the key is. The key is behind that door over there. The key is behind your angry
Yes.
and your resentment. And that's exactly what we all need. And we need someone like a grandmaster or a spiritual teacher to say, wait a minute, let's go look at that. You find out what you're angry about. You find out where you got this belief, Martin, that you had to be rich and successful, you weren't lovable, and unpack that and find the truth in that, and you'll be healed.
Yeah.
You'll heal that wound. So that's a
Exactly.
wonderful story because we all and that's great for Eric because we never like the dark night when we're in it because it's
Yes.
sick, we feel bad, we give ourselves a pity party, we just do all kinds of bad things. But the best thing about that is what we're sharing now is that get somebody to help you. You cannot get through it alone,
Hmm.
and get somebody who's been there before you to help guide you through it, to help you see the light in the darkness. And I
Yes.
think that's what you found in that clarity around your anger was you saw, oh, wait a minute, I'm pretending not to be angry, which was not true.
Exactly.
All that energy you were spending to try to look and be positive and be joyful was exhausting because inside you were angry, right?
Yeah, and I didn't even know, and that's it. When you go through, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but I remember in 2017 there was 2 weeks in the month of July where I felt like I was questioning everything. It's like I had this light bulb moment about myself, about why I'm here, and then for a period of 2 weeks, everything that I believed I knew was shattered. And so I had no idea. I remember so specifically, I had no idea what to believe anymore. And so it went from here's Kyrie's world, for 20 some years, 25 years, whatever, 35 years. Here's what the world was. And all of a sudden, I remember some books that I was reading and things and I just had these huge aha moments, but it shattered everything that I believed to be true. And for 2 weeks, I was in limbo. What do I believe now? If all of that stuff is
Yeah.
not true and it's not serving me, now what do I believe? And it was the most uncomfortable and the weirdest place I have ever been.
I so relate because
Yes.
once I had this realization, once Joy came in my life and she says, "You don't," I go, "Oh my God, I'm so relieved. I feel so good. I'm so enlightened." That all of a sudden, it was like I crashed into the old Martin died,
Yeah.
like a wave in the sand. And now I'm deep, deep, deep in the essence of myself. And I didn't know who I was. And I was
Yes.
afraid and I was alone. And I was like, that was a dark. And I was like, oh my God, this is darker than the dark.
It's like, and
Because
who do I talk to about this stuff? Yeah.
and that's what I was like. I know I'm not that anymore. I'm not that big old wave that was out there rooting his horn.
Yeah.
That died on the shore. But who am I?
Yes.
And what I've had to learn is get in touch with that deep essence of presence. And I stay close to that today. I stay very, very close to that heart space. That's what
Exactly.
heart space means. The ocean is the heart space. The
Exactly.
ocean is the presence of the divine within all of us. And I find myself day after day, if I build a little wave, I have to go back and put the wave back in the water. Because the wave I built yesterday isn't necessarily going to serve me today.
Exactly.
You know?
Same thing. That it was my first time being in that space where there's no beliefs and there's no stories and there is just nothing.
Right. There's that Zen Buddhist nothingness. Right?
Exactly. It was my first time and it was very scary. But now I find myself constantly looking to get back in that state on a daily basis, because that's where there is no struggle. I keep my husband and we keep talking because we went through all of these phases together, right? Like, and because I was shattering everything I knew, it also had an impact on him having to shatter everything because we're in this relationship and the kids. So we went through this transition between 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, where it was very difficult, but it shattered a lot of our identities and how we relate to each other. And now just realizing how much less we struggle just because there is less stories to hold on to.
Isn't that wonderful? I love this. This is why we're here together. And why we work. That's what heart space is.
Yes.
Heart space is that presence. And when we're in heart space, I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not trying to be right. I'm not trying to do anything but just show up and be with love and gratitude for this wild thing called the human experience.
Exactly.
And see what I can do to bring more people into this space. Because that's the thing. Once we realize really all it was holding on to an old story, holding on to an old false belief that I needed to be this in order to be loved. Once I let that go and said, I don't need to do anything. I just need to be still and listen to that divine spirit. She will guide me all along the way.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that I noticed. And one thing too, I remember when I was sick, there were days where I was very angry at God, Martin. I was very angry at the universe. I was,
why did you do this to me?
Yes. There were days where I was very angry and days where I would try and bribe, but I remember because I couldn't sleep for 3.5 years. So a lot of talking to, whoever's out there. And there was a moment where I was so desperate that I was always in in this like programming and repetition of, if I'm able to be well one day, I'm going to spend the rest of my days serving other humans. Like that was what would get me through it. I was like, maybe if I, negotiate something, it's going to work out for me. But now, and when I got better, that's what I started doing, right? I was like, who can I help, etc.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed, however, over the past few years is me trying to look outside for people to help is not helping people. For me to help others, I just need to focus on the inner world. And when I do,
oh my God, that is exactly what I have recently discovered.
Yeah.
It's not there. It's in everything happens in here. Everything happens in the heart.
Exactly. Even this conversation, it's literally happening on the inside. It's just, reflecting like this.
We're just putting it out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And when I focus on just raising my own vibrational energy, I'm going to attract the people out there because my language in the world is going to be that. And we talk a lot about conviction marketing in UE, and that's the power of conviction marketing. When you're out there telling your story, when you're telling why it's important that I bring you into heart space.
Yeah. Exactly.
Why it's important, because I want you to live a life of significance. I want the people to show up who want to live in heart space, who see how much more powerful they are, like you've discovered, because there's no conflict. There's no, I need to be right. I just need to love you.
Yeah, exactly.
And me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
And
love it.
one thing too, that I'm again, when you just learn to shut up, when we
Yeah.
learn to just shut up and just listen, we find that things get so much easier. And for me, realizing that the default is growth. The default is things working out. The default is the abundance, is the prosperity, and anything else. So that's the reason why I was being told since I was a kid, that everything that you ask for, you actually get it. It's
Yeah.
already in creation. But what actually stops us is just us, the stories, etc. So constantly throughout the day, and I set myself reminders on my phone, etc., to just go back, to just learn to shut up, to just learn to
You know,
not,
I
you
love
know
that.
what I mean?
You
Because
reminded
then
me.
when you do, everything else that you're working towards just shows up in your experience without the struggle. And I just absolutely.
Yeah. And it's so much more fun. Just the other Wednesday this week, I found myself in this is you'll love this story, and I want you to come back and tell the story about one of your big breakthroughs with one of your clients. But I'm going to share exactly that. As I was working on something, and all of a sudden I was getting antsy, and I was like, I want to get this done. I want to get this done. I want to get this done. And Joy says, Martin, Joy the wise woman, it's a beautiful day outside. You see that chair in the front yard? I want you to close off your computer right this minute. I want you to go out and sit in that chair and get still and listen. But I told you, Martin,
Yes.
go out there. It's not about doing, it's about being. I want you to be still and listen to me for a little bit. Go out and see the beautiful trees. Go out and be in the spring. See what that feels like. Quiet the mind and open the heart. I did exactly what she said, kind of angrily. Okay, you tell me, I'm going to go out there and do it. And I'll tell you, and I was sitting, well, here I am, what now?
I know.
I'm listening.
Yes.
She said, I know, be still and listen. I mean, really get still and listen. And all of a sudden, I began to see the world differently. I began to understand that I am that loving presence. And about an hour later, all of a sudden, the things that I was struggling to get done just started happening.
Yeah.
Just started happening. And it was all about who I was being more than what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And that's a hard lesson to learn for us because we're spirit, and spirit does in being, in stillness. It doesn't do it by the
Yes.
mind telling it what to do. So I'd love to hear a little bit about. So so now that you're bringing me and other people into this world of understanding of how powerful we are and masters we are. Give us an example of a story of one of your favorite stories where you've taken a client through a breakthrough and really made a difference in their lives, so people get a sense of what you do and how you help people.
Yeah, and it's so funny because when you look at my job description, what I do is I'm a business strategist. I help entrepreneurs go from zero or 100,000 to million and multi-million dollars in business. So that is what I do for a living. But when you look at how I do it, I would say maybe 20% of it is strategy. 80% of how I do it is actually not in what I'm talking about. It happens before the call, it happens during the call in terms of who I'm being. I always get into every single call extremely silent, just so I can hear the stuff that they're not telling me. And so many, many times when I'm talking to a client, just because I'm so focused on just listening to the other stuff, not the making money and, the struggle with their team members, etc., because those are symptoms. Those are like the stories that we put out there,
Yeah.
but it's not the real thing that's happening. But a lot of times, Martin, I'll actually just see images of things that are happening, right? And I know for sure that it's just from becoming so much more intuitive by shutting up internally. And so I remember I was talking to this client, and she had been struggling for a bit in terms of her business and what she wanted to do with it. And I remember we were on this call, and I was giving her strategy ideas. Here's what you should do. And every single time she always had an objection to it. There was always a reason why that wouldn't work. And at a certain point, I had to stop her, and I told her, there is, for some reason, now you tell me, maybe I'm completely, out. Maybe it has nothing to do with what's going on here, but I literally can see a wall between the two of you, and you're playing ping pong with me. Like there's something that you're so scared of that every single idea that I'm throwing your way, you're just, pushing it to the side. And I started just asking her a couple of questions and started asking her about her husband, which she doesn't talk about often. And turned out the reason why she was struggling with her business was because she was afraid that if she got too successful, her husband was going to leave her. Now, if you're trying to build a business with the fear and that story behind everything that's saying, if I get successful, my husband's going to leave me, you're never going to get successful. So those are the things that I love to look at. And I love to tell people, hey, you're going to be a millionaire this year. Every single person that I told it to, Martin, they did it. Every single person. And the only reason they do is that at the moment where I tell them, they just believe it. Yeah. Right. So that's what I love the most about what I do. I've helped people go from like completely change their lives. I know it's not necessarily me doing the thing, but it's just me shutting up enough that I can hear something about what's going on and create that mental breakthrough, or the emotion shifting something in their paradigm, inspiring them in some way. And so just with that, they go on and completely change their trajectory. It's the best, the most fulfilling thing ever.
Isn't it though, when people realize the truth of who they are, that they got these holy stories, when they realize that they're actually these powerful, creative, particularly women and gay men. I work kind of in the space of gay men, and I'm really working I want what Kelly's doing for women. Kelly Roach is our coach. Khaïry works on Kelly's team, and she's my mindset coach as part of that team, and I'm part of that group. And what she's doing is she is creating a movement, I believe, of women stepping into their authenticity, into their power, into their authentic powers. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of like say Hillary Clinton, for example. I got to know Hillary Clinton very well when I worked at Ground Zero. She was the senator of New York at the time, and we became good friends. She was the most outstanding. Talk about a really heart-centered civil servant. She's that. But she doesn't come across that way in the world because she feels too vulnerable when she's collaborative and loving and nurturing and all those divine feminine traits that make her so powerful. And but because in the world of trying to compete with men, she was competing with using male characteristics, which made her inauthentic. And I think, and I'm not blaming her, but she was ahead of her time. And like what we're learning and what you're learning, I'm learning for gay men and we're learning for women is step into those divine superpowers, step into those divine characteristics that make you so powerful. And for men, I'm telling you this, when you're loving and you're nurturing and you're vulnerable and you're collaborative and you do all those things that make you so powerful from the inside, combined with an exterior that's handsome and masculine and male, that's a powerful combination for change.
It is absolutely. And people are attracted to that. So that's again, another reason why I feel like we were not taught the right skills growing up. We were taught to look out there to solve any of our issues and to dream, etc. It was like all about looking on the outside and then trying to become charismatic by, not being authentic. Whereas what I notice is that when people are working on their inner world, when they're working on building the courage and the love and all of those elements, you become magnetic. You become magnetic to the people who love you. People who don't know you, but they're in search for that type of energy, they become attracted to you. If you have a business, your clientele grows. If you have, you know what I mean? Like everything starts to become attracted to you because of what's happening on the inside. Right. So in everything that I do, like that is my main goal, is to radiate that all the time. And I find that I then attract people like you and other people who are kind of doing the same thing.
Right.
And it does create an amazing movement.
That is that's exactly what we're talking about. When we raise, like Nikola Tesla says that if you want to understand the universe and your relationship to it, everything is about energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah.
And if we bring our vibration, and the highest vibrational frequency is the creative power of unconditional love. It's the creative energy of love in the world that transcends the human mind, and that's what we're talking about. That energy force. They call it the quantum field today. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven. I call it heart space. And it's all the same thing. It's all that power force that is what we are. And when we can step into that and let go of all that stuff, clear our mind, God, there's nothing. And then we're in that vibrational field, and people begin to, that's what the law of attraction is really about. It's not, well, if I want a nice Mercedes in my front yard, if I just think positive thoughts, I'll bring the energy, and all of a sudden I'll have a Mercedes. You might, but I don't think that's really what is intended. The intention is to bring our vibrational frequency up into that higher range of love and empathy and compassion and practice. And then people, oh my God, I want that in my life. I want to feel love and compassion and empathy and connected to the world.
Yes, that's something that's so true. When I discovered the law of attraction, I was like, okay, this is cool. This kind of explains the stuff that I was told when I was a kid, but I was like, but something's missing though, because it's still looking on the outside and then just dreaming about, and I was like, something is not working here. Something's not complete. And the thing that solved all of it, and I know is a solution, is exactly what you're talking about, is remembering to forget, remembering to just go back to that empty space of love all the time. And because when we forget to forget, we go back to all of the stories automatically, right? And things, we start struggling again. So just constantly staying in that state of loving and silence as much as possible, everything else becomes so much easier. And even things that I find that I used to be very focused on what I would love to have and what I would love to get and what I would love to experience. And even sometimes when I'm teaching mindset, I find that people are very focused on that aspect still. In my mind, and I don't know if this makes sense to you, but in my mind, when it comes to our spiritual evolution, we go from victimhood, which is where I was, right? Victimhood and blaming and resentment, because we feel like everything is happening against us, to the law of attraction, which is where we feel like we're starting to gain power over what we have, right? But then that is just step 2. Like that next level is when we realize that, oh, it's not about all of the stuff that I think I want, because all the things we think we want, it's still stories. It's still things that we're holding on to. But going and letting go of all of that, then the stuff that you love and the stuff that are supposed to be birthed through you just come out anyway. And it is so much more fulfilling than dreaming of a Tesla and, trying to get into the energetic vibration of a Tesla. It's like, no, there's probably something even better that you could get, but it's being open to that.
Yeah, I think it's being open to the fact that you can have a Tesla if you want one.
Yeah.
That is it. Because I have everything. I am the creator of the universe. There's nothing I can't have, including $1 million.
Yeah.
Once we get into that space. So let me ask you, we got a few more minutes left. And sometimes when people hear people like us talking about what we talk about, it just sounds so woo-woo. It just sounds so like, what are they talking about? You just, you'll manifest it. What is one thing that people could do? They could just say, maybe Khaïry and Martin have got something here. Maybe what could they listen to? What's the one simple thing that they could take away from this podcast and go do immediately to get an aha? Wait a minute, maybe they got something going on there.
And are you asking in terms of something to reach a goal that they have, like
just to get out of the negative mindset and into a positive mindset? Because the negative mindset is a lower vibrational frequency.
Yes.
And it makes you feel bad. And we know we're in one because we're angry and we're I was getting in one the other day and I was like, I couldn't get this to
Yes.
work. We get into this, we're in a lower vibrational field where we begin to
Oh
feel
yeah.
like a victim and all that kind of stuff. What can people do? What would you recommend? Okay, I'm in this lower vibrational frequency right now. I'm not very productive here, but
Yes.
if I do this, this is a way I can quickly move myself up into that
Up,
higher
yeah.
vibrational frequency.
Yes, and this is what I do personally. This is what I tell my children to do. This is what I tell clients to do when I'm on a call with them and they're not in the headspace. I find that people forget what it feels like to feel great.
Mm,
And when you feel great, you are actually in the energy of love,
right.
right? So one thing that I always tell people when they're struggling, AK, is what typically brings you joy? You need
Mm-hmm.
to stop everything you're doing right now and go back to that. That is the easiest way to flip the switch and go back to whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you, makes you feel so much better. Then from that headspace, everything else that you're trying to deal with will become so much easier.
Yeah.
So if I can I've asked clients on calls, what makes you happy? And a client told me once, she was like, I love to sing, but I just realized I haven't sung in 10 months because of COVID, right? And I was like, you need to put that in your calendar and have 20 minutes a day where you just do that.
Right.
And it completely, like, she opened up, she started smiling again. So remember what it feels like to feel good. Remember what it feels like to
Yeah.
be happy.
Yeah, it was like and it just think of something that you really like. The other day, I was like, I knew I was frustrated. I saw that chair out my front yard on the beautiful day. I said, you know what? I bet I'd feel a lot better sitting here
Yeah.
fussing with this computer if I just went out there and sat down in there with some iced tea and just enjoyed the neighborhood and see what
Exactly.
happens. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you're right. And when I felt better, my vibration went back up. And also, when we're in that higher vibrational frequency, it opens up something within the brain that actually
Yeah.
allows us to be our most creative and productive self. And that's what really it's all about. And that's how you become a millionaire maker, because you
Yes.
realize that you're very creative and you can begin to think of ideas and ways to actually make a difference in the world from that creative genius in us, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone calls me the time bender in the company because I coined that term. And honestly, because I always tell people productivity it's an inner game. It's about how you're feeling. That's what determines if you're going to be productive or not. And for me,
Mhm.
bending time and crushing any goal like very easily is all about just feeling amazing about anything I'm doing. If I'm not feeling great, I'm going to stop that thing and go feel amazing. And it always, always, always. So
Always,
if
and
you
it's
combine,
amazing.
yeah, if
And
you combine feeling great with taking some action, that building that
Mhm.
momentum, you always end up going
Yeah,
where you need to
yeah,
go.
because we get into our head, we think we got to go out and do all these tasks in
Yeah.
order to become a millionaire and become this. It's not about the doing; it's about being. And when we do it, when whatever we're doing, if it's shifting our being to being in love and being feeling good and being in high vibration, that's how we create a world.
Exactly.
Isn't that
Yeah.
wonderful? So it is half hour. I can't believe it, how quickly they go. And I've been always looking
So
forward to this
fast.
time with you. How was the best play for people who want to? And I recommend if you would want to get some insight into what's going on in your world and how you can manifest and become a millionaire. Is it because that's the thing about us coaches is that when you help see the $7 million millionaire in me, I'm now working and acting and doing what a $7 million. I was making a decision the other day about something, and I thought, now, am I making a decision as poor Martin, or am I making a decision as this is a $7 million CEO running a business?
Yeah.
What would that guy do? I said, well, that guy would buy this because it's something that's going to help his business grow. So and it will come. But but I had to go through that little mental
Yes.
game to say, well, what would the $7 million CEO do versus what's the guy who's struggling trying to make the ends meet? Because both of those could be realities, but one of them is just a moment in time and a
Mhm.
mindset. So that's just what I wanted to say. And so I would say that Khairy is one of the best because she's really helped me to see the millionaire in me and become a millionaire maker myself. And the reason is not so that I can have money to have a Tesla, although it'd be kind of fun. But the reason
Yeah.
is because I want to make an impact on the world. I want to bring my skills, my love, my joy, and that abundance is money is a powerful
Mhm.
vehicle source for living that life of abundance and making a significant impact. And when I begin to see the world that way, it's not that sort of selfish narcissistic, I want to be a millionaire for me. It's I want to build something big enough for the world to appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I always, and these are the things that I talk about, because you asked like where people can find me. I think I'm the only one on social media whose name is Khaïry Varre. So you can find me under that name on Facebook or Instagram, is where I have most of my content. It's a lot of content related to business, but also bringing wisdom back into business, right? So those philosophies that actually make us greater human beings and have a greater impact on the world. So that's the best way to find me.
Yes, and I would highly recommend you finding her, because she is really, truly a gift to this world, and she's very open and generous with her heart and her sharing and her information and wisdom. And wisdom, I like the word wisdom, and because I think wisdom is different than knowledge. Wisdom is reminding people of the truth of what they already know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
That's what's really coming up for me these days. It's all about bringing the wisdom back to all
Yeah.
the things that we do.
Everything that we do. So thank you for that. Hold 1 second. I want to give a little plug in for where people can find me.
Yes.
I have 2 Facebook groups, but you can find me by Martin Coward on Facebook, social media too, and TikTok. It's Martin Coward Coaching. That's me, and you can find me that way. And I'd love to. If you find me and you want to have a conversation, all you got to do is send me a direct message and say, Martin, I heard the podcast and I want to know more about you, and I'll be happy to get back with you and we'll have a conversation. That's just how. Because that's what we're here for, right? We're here to help people move into heart space. So if that's something you want to do, send me a direct message. But I've also got a couple of Facebook groups that you might be interested in. I've got one called the Financial Mystics Sanctuary. And that's a Facebook group for everybody to look at the mystical, the spiritual principles of wisdom, to what Khaïry just said about how do we manifest, how do we have successful businesses, how do we solve problems from the spiritual perspective using those truths. And that's for everybody. And then because I work with gay, bi, and trans men, I have another Facebook group called Financial Heart Space for Gay, Bi, and Trans Men. And that's for us because it's a place for us to work with our own specific types of wounding that we got as gay men growing up. And it just wouldn't make sense to someone really outside of that world. So if that's you and you want some real, understanding what it's like to have limiting beliefs and to have sense of not being good enough and always trying to compete with the normal boys we all try to do, come join us over there in Financial Heart Space for Gay, Transgender, and we'll show you there's a better truth, there's a better way, and you're a really powerful guy just because of your queer nature. So join us over there if you would like to find out more about that. So, and that's Financial Heart Space for Gay, Bi, and Transgender Men. So thank you, Khaïry, so much for being.
Thank you so much for having me.
I knew this was going to fly by way too fast. Hold on 1 second. Let me just close this out, and we'll just have a conversation quick backstage. And everyone, thank you so much for being here, and may love and prosperity prevail.